Today my journeys took me to a place beside the sea, Charleston, South Carolina. And that church you see down the road, well, it has a cemetery with an interesting background. And a tragic tale of two young lovers whose romance ended almost before it began. Well, it's time for me to step off board and I'll head over and I'll meet you at the gate. Behind me it's written that ye shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. But what is the truth about the Unitarian Cemetery here in Charleston, South Carolina? We're about to go inside and take a look around. One of the first things you'll notice about the Unitarian Cemetery as you enter from over on King Street is that it's a little bit different. Various forms of plant life, both natural and imported, live side by side. And while it does seem to outsiders to be a bit overgrown, this is the natural state here at the cemetery. This is its intended purpose, and it's meant to convey a theme. But you may ask, what exactly is that theme? Those who are buried here have lived out their lives here on earth, and when they do, they come here and they return from whence they came. Something similar to ashes, dust to dust. From dust you came, and to dust you shall return. And that's what they believe. But instead of being the end, it's a brand new beginning. Because in death they believe that their departed loved ones continue to contribute to nature and its continued growth. For example, Aunt Eliza, buried here behind me, has contributed to the foliage, the plant life, the flora, and the fauna of this area, and will continue to do so. And Uncle Anthony, well, he has continued to contribute to the growth of this tree right behind him. In the grand scheme of things, who knew that each and every one of us was blessed with such a green thumb? But let's move on and talk about some other things now that we've explored the background to the cemetery. And there are some who say that the residents here don't discontinue on in the form of plant life. They come back in the form of spirits who have invaded our material world. Well, I must say that the jury is still out on spirits and ghosts and things of that nature. But what are they anyway, if they do exist? Well, there are a few different explanations. In some ancient Jewish belief, they believed that the body comprised two parts, the body and the soul. Now, the problem with ghosts in that culture would be whenever the soul died, the body died. And when the body died, the soul died. In short, when the human died, they were dead and there's nothing left of them. So we must look elsewhere for the origin of ghosts. Later cultures, before I was born, they believed that the body and the soul were separate, that when the body died, the soul could live on. In fact, they believed that the body was bad, but the soul was good. It was kind of like Madonna's material world is bad, material and physical were bad, but spiritual, Sting and the Police's spirits in the material world were good. And that inner spirit of every person was wanting to break free and live free of the body which was corrupt, and hence probably the birth, or at least one origin, there are others, I certainly don't know them all, of the modern day ghost. So with that being said, let's move on to some of the tales surrounding this cemetery. So, going by the theory that believed that the soul, once separated from the body, could live on, how would that be possible? Well, one belief was that whenever there was something so traumatic, so harmful to the person that they perhaps died suddenly, their life was stopped in mid-motion, they weren't sure which way to go, and their soul perhaps continued to wander around for a while until it got it figured out. And that, my followers, leads us to our first ghost tale from this cemetery. It's the tragic tale of two young lovers whose romance was tragically broken up before its time. And there are some who say the ghosts of each still roam about in this cemetery. The young man was a gentleman named Edward Allen. He was stationed nearby here in the military, the Navy, over at Fort Moultrie. One day, as he came into town, he noticed what he believed was the most beautiful young lady that he had seen, and her name was Anna Ravenel. Edward Allen had fibbed, as a lot of heroic men did back in those days, in order to join the military and see the world and hopefully not get killed in battle. But his journey led him here, where he met a younger girl, as I mentioned, Miss Anna Ravenel. They began to secretly meet here in the courtyard of this very same cemetery in the evening, in the twilight of the day. However, the father didn't think it was a proper romance, and he forbade his daughter to see her and locked her away from seeing Edward Allen. The two young paramours were tragically separated, and little did they know it at the time, but in this life, they would never see one another again. One version of the story goes like this, that when Mr. Ravenel found out about this romance his daughter was having with this older military man, he cut it off. And in fact, he contacted the base and had Mr. Allen sent to another base to serve out his tour of duty. But sadly, in those days, with medicine not being as modern as it is today, Miss Anna Ravenel came down with something called yellow fever, and she passed away at a young age. And when Mr. Allen, when he caught word of this, he returned from Baltimore and came back to Charleston to attend the funeral. However, by the time that he arrived, the funeral was over and the body had already been buried. But the question is, where is the body of Anna Ravenel? That's a mystery that still lingers to this day. And to further complicate matters, there is no record of her being buried anywhere here on the grounds. They say that the father anticipated this happening and had dug up 6 separate grave spots where she could have been buried, but she was apparently not buried in any of them. I think his hope was, he was so angered by the romance that he hoped Mr. Edward Allen never found where his daughter was buried. And folks, I'm here to tell you, the ending of someone's life doesn't get much more tragic than that. And hence they say that Anna Ravenel is the lady in white who still roams here at the Unitarian Cemetery at night. And there are some who say in the area of this marker which says Rose, in this general vicinity, somewhere here, is where she is buried, but nobody knows where to this day. And finally, to close that tale out, Edward Allen, of course, was an assumed name used for him to get into the military. His actual name was Edgar Allan Poe, who went on to have kind of a tragic ending himself. They say later on he was so devastated by this whole event that he maybe turned to drinking and drugs and died young as a result. Again, a tragic ending. And prior to his own passing, he wrote the poem, Annabel Lee, which told the tragedy of how he and Annabel were separated. But it has been said that while those two tragically were separated in life, that each comes here in the evening, in the twilight hours, looking for their lover from whom they were tragically separated. It was many and many a year ago in that kingdom by the sea that a maiden lived there, and her name was Annabel Lee. And Annabel died not of yellow fever, but of a broken heart. And there's one other tale which I thought I would share with you before I leave here on this rather hot and sweltering early morning. A local man and his wife had picked up the very, very, very bad habit of making friends with certain young men, probably stragglers, strangers, and loners. And then she would poison them. They would then rob the young man and then kill and bury them. Of course, in the end, as hopefully it always does in terrible situations like that, justice will prevail. And both were sentenced to death, and upon the death of the lady who was involved, she expressed very little remorse and frankly was happy for what she had done. And hence, as a result, they say that she is the mysterious lady in white who roams through the cemetery looking for yet more victims, and probably for her husband to help her out. Charleston innkeepers John and Lavinia Fisher were both convicted and hanged for their crimes against the male travelers. At her hanging, Lavinia stated, "Save your words for those who want them, but if you want a message sent to hell, I'll pass it along for you." She is buried at the Unitarian Cemetery. And there you have it, my friends, my humble attempt to share with you some of the history of this cemetery located in Charleston, South Carolina. Fairly easy to get to. It's a very nice section of town. There's lots and lots of stuff here to see if you've never been here before. I would highly recommend that you come and take in the scenery and visit this rather unique and different kind of cemetery. Until next time, this is Jeff saying happy travels, everyone, from Charleston, South Carolina.
Message for the devil. You let me know right now, because I'm dining with him tonight.